Hello? Am I on?
Yes,
Yeah.
you are on.
Oh, okay. All righty. Good. Okay, I'm ready.
I'll call the meeting to order. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I guess we're having this meeting to discuss the incoming treasurer, kind of what she's dealing with here.
Would you like for me to give a little summary here?
Yeah, if you would, Martin.
This is regarding Treasurer-elect Lori Vincus. We've had difficulty procuring a bond or crime insurance policy with appropriate coverage in accordance with Indiana Code 54118. And we've been working with, really everybody here has been working together on this, along with our insurance agent, Carrie Block, and then ultimately with Paul Joyce, who is the director of the State Board of Accounts. And with their help, and after reviewing case law and the statute, we've come up with a policy that the State Board of Accounts is suggesting, and I recommend that I believe it is lawful. Basically, that we have it in letter form here. I don't think I want to read the whole letter into the record, but this will allow Treasurer-elect Vincus to take office. It'll be done pursuant to a bond that we've already gotten filed, thanks to the really diligent efforts of the auditor, Rachel Osterreich, and others here. It is compliant with the statute for the Rhonda Graves, I believe is going to be the a deputy in that office. And we also have a best practices memorandum, which is the position letter, I guess they call it, from the State Board of Accounts, which provides substantial guidance in how to handle it. And what we're really looking at here is that the proposal is for a temporary period during which the bond coverage would actually be through Rhonda Graves rather than the treasurer, soon to be treasurer actually, Lori Vincus. And the goal is that hopefully she'll be able to get that coverage, and we're hopeful that will happen within the next 30 days. And if that time isn't really etched in stone, but that's kind of a suggested period. And I guess I'm suggesting 30 days, and then maybe if a short extension of that is needed, then it looks like progress is being made. But if not, the way that the laws are written, it's clear under this case that the person that comes in has a reasonable period of time to address this issue, if it's not any fault of hers, and I think we all agree it's not. So at the end of that period, if she hasn't been able to get the bond coverage, then we'll have to resolve it then. But the only, I think Director Joyce and myself both agree that the only permanent solution for it would be would be actually a court decision that would allow interpretation of this law. Is that kind of covering it? I meant to actually bring a copy of the case. I was kind of rushed out the door. I meant to bring a copy of the case that we're relying on, and it's a 2008 reported Indiana case. This is kind of important for this because the decision is a fairly expansive interpretation of the statutory language. I'd like to have that in the record, so with the commissioner's approval, I'll submit that like early next week so that it can be added to this. But it was the key thing. It was cited to me by Director Joyce, and he gave his interpretation, and I went and read it, and I agree with his interpretation that under that, this problem does not preclude treasurer-elect Venkis from taking office. But by the same token, I don't think I think the problem does need to be addressed eventually. Does that make, do you
Yeah.
agree with all that? Because you were in this throughout. We also have another action that the letter suggests, which is, and this is sort of where we started out, we have an ordinance that would allow use of a crime insurance policy rather than a bond. Now, I will say this is based on what they call a bond bulletin clarification letter, number 10, actually, from October 22nd, 2015, from the State Board of Accounts. I agree with what the clarification letter says. And in fact, I think actually that's what the statute says. But the State Board of Accounts wants this kind of ordinance in place. I will say, in my opinion, it actually doesn't change the position, because I think you could have done what it says here anyway, because I think the State Board of Accounts interpretation of the law is correct on this point. But I will say that they want that. And I think that would be useful in any event, because the law does allow you to use one of these crime insurance policies so long as it includes an endorsement for faithful performance, which actually isn't a standard term in one of those. So they have to be modified to address this so that it complies with the statute. And I advise I think it's a good idea. And if you want to do it in time, they would have to suspend the rules and then vote for it unanimously, since we can only do one reading on it. But it doesn't affect anybody outside of the public. It just affects this just actually complies with the State Board of Accounts rule that you have to have that in place before you do it. Does that answer your questions? I know it's a little bit complicated.
Yeah.
No, it covers it how we should here.
So actually what we need to do is adopt this ordinance.
And the other thing is, I think actually you have to, I think you have to, or I get, at least state on the record your agreement to adopt. This is a separate thing, actually, because this is just today. This was just issued today for this particular, to adopt this policy as detailed here. And one of the areas about it that Rachel and I just talked about, I think it's a good thing, but I think it does raise one thing just as a practical matter. None of our commissioners are accountants, and nor am I. And I know I wouldn't want to be. Here's the thing: it puts during the interim period, in order to have adequate protections in place that are satisfactory to the State Board of Accounts, they're suggesting is some best practices, some additional safeguards during that period, which I think are fine. But I think that, I guess what I'm trying to say is I think maybe the commissioners are going to need a little help to do their part of it, because I feel like these kind of activities are so specialized, and I know I wouldn't want to be, given that task, honestly. And so I would hesitate. And I talked to, Director Joyce about that, and he understands that position. So I don't think you'd have any problem with it. I mean, you'd be signing off on it, but I think I would advise that you may need to get a little additional assistance with an experienced bookkeeper, somebody maybe who's experienced in this kind of, this kind of work. I don't know if we have any former officials around here who might be willing to help out a little bit, or something like that would be a good choice in this interim period, so that you don't have to comply with all this. Was there any comments? Rachel, you have more knowledge in this area than I do, actually, exactly how the mechanics of this work. Do you have any comments about making that really workable?
I know they named that the commissioner should look over this, and this, but I think you should get somebody else,
Yeah.
A little help. You should.
Nothing against you.
What's that?
Nothing against.
Oh no! Like I said, that's why I said I wouldn't want to.
Well, we
do
don't know.
it. I wouldn't want
I
to.
don't know.
I would. Get somebody who's really familiar with this stuff, and then you talk to them. You get somebody to help you with it.
Right.
But we could. She could end up giving us a bond in 10 days, and then this would just.
Yeah. Right.
We don't need any of this.
Yeah.
So
they're working with the AIC, which I think is a good idea, because yeah, I mean, I think that may help. I'm hopeful that seems like a really good direction to go on, trying to get this actually fixed.
Pretty much we have to,
So I guess the
Make
things that I'm
motions.
suggesting are, and also Rachel has put into the record for this proceeding, a copy of the bond showing that it was in fact, and I think I've already advised you, but I'll just on the record here, I'll advise, one of the interesting things about the statutory situation here. What is the commissioner's role? The commissioner's role actually is one thing, which is approving the bond. And the bond is statutorily requisite to taking office, but under this case, there is some flexibility in that. And I guess what I'm also suggesting is, the three things. One is that you find that this bond is actually sufficient, other than the fact that it's not actually on the treasurer, but that it is sufficient, so that you're doing your duty there, that you approve and make and agree to comply with these terms in the State Board of Accounts position letter, and finally that you move and adopt unanimously, after suspending the rules, the ordinance that allows the use of a crime insurance policy. I'm not even sure we're going to end up using a crime insurance policy, but then you'll have that option, not just now, but in the future as well. So that's a good thing.
Right.
Kathy, did you hear all that too?
Yep, I heard it all. And I'm happy to make that motion. I mean, I think this provides us with a relief measure to get Lori into the office and not disrupt the operations of the treasurer's office for the taxpayers.
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor?
I wasn't aware I was making a motion, but
Oh,
I was just commenting. So, but yeah, that's okay. I'll make the motion that we suspend the rules and adopt the ordinance. And I will also make a motion that we accept the crime policy as per the bulletin provided by the State Board of Accounts.
Second.
all those in favor? Aye.
And the other ones are, Kathy, have you had an opportunity to review the policy?
I didn't get a copy of the policy. I just got, if I did, I didn't realize it. But I did read what the guy said from the State Board of Accounts.
That's what I'm talking about. I'm sorry. I should have said that's their position letter. Excuse me. I really.
Oh, yes. I read it. Yes, I got a copy of it and I read it, and I was satisfied with what I was reading, and felt that gave us some opportunity to get through this tricky little period and move forward and get Lori into the position, and hopefully everything gets resolved.
So I would suggest that there be a motion to adopt and implement that policy I would suggest also that you have a time period, and maybe what you would do is you do that until effective until your next meeting, and then review it.
Okay.
Because once again, if it looked like solving it was imminent, you wouldn't want it to run out then. But if there wasn't any progress being made, we hope that won't happen. But if that was the case, then we'd have to look for Plan B, which would be to look for judicial, relief in this. And that's what, once again, that's what myself and Director Joyce discussed as being the other plan, because we both agree that only a court of competent jurisdiction would have authority to really deal with this.
So is there a motion to approve the policy from State Board of Accounts?
Right, their letter.
Their letters that was gave to us in an email.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a
I'll second.
All those
Yeah,
in favor? Aye.
and then it's just until your next meeting, which is Monday, right?
Right.
No, I'm sorry, not.
A second.
I didn't mean it that way. I meant the first meeting in February. I don't think it's realistic to.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, I was going to say, I thought, well, gosh, I thought that's what you said, though.
And if they get it between now and then, that would be taken care of. I mean, obviously, this all becomes moot at the point that she can manage to resolve it.
Yep, that I'm good with that, with the motion that Brian made. I second it.
And then, we gotta,
Then
Kathy
you-
did the policy, right?
Right.
Then we gotta
Approve
do
the
Approve the
bond.
bond. So is there a motion to approve the bond as presented?
Make that motion.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So Director Paul Joyce did give Carrie Block some avenues to follow for bonding. So she did try to call them today. They're closed for the holiday, so she will be working on that Monday.
Well, I know Carrie put in a lot of effort, and I know she left no stone unturned, and we can depend on her to do what she can for getting this coverage that we need. So I think she did a great job.
I agree.
So the issue with having, besides us, the commissioners helping, I mean, would that be something we'd have to?
I think you could deal with that at your next regular
Okay.
meeting. I mean, on Monday.
Yeah.
Because there isn't really going to be anything happening between
No.
now and then anyway. But I just think, a matter of trying to identify somebody who could provide you some consulting services at a reasonable price on that, so that you you're not going to want to learn how to do all this stuff, right? I mean, it's kind of a specialty,
Right,
And if we want somebody to be able to look at it and maybe make some recommendations. I mean, like one of the recommendations is an order with the bank. And I think if we get somebody with some experience in that area, they can maybe suggest those and we can do them in an intelligent way. I wouldn't want to get into that either because it's not my area of expertise.
right.
We're all good.
I don't know, I seen, Jim, did you have anything to say about this stuff, or? I seen you're on there.
Yeah, no, I figured I'd tune in and see if there was what the outcome was. So when I reached out to Brad King at the election division yesterday, kind of escalated up and I heard what was going on. He gave me the connections for State Board of Accounts and a little bit of direction, and also mentioned that case in Posey County. So I haven't seen the actual case or what the judge ended up with, but there's a clear conflict in the code, right? So the election code and this bond requirement is directly button heads, if you will. Yeah. So there is no qualification to run for a treasurer. So if the bond requirement is going to be in statute like that it is, and be separate from any other bonding for municipalities or counties that need to have those bonds, then it should be listed as a requirement before you run for the office, right? It should be up there. So a couple things are going on. We have a treasurer that was elected by the people, and to get rid of the treasurer because of a technicality on this, which is not a requirement, is a direct conflict. So it's something I'm going to work on this session, try and amend it into some election code to hopefully to fix it to where it hopefully doesn't happen again. And one of the thoughts that I'm having, and maybe you guys will have an opinion on this, which would help me, is a blanket bond for anybody required to have a bond within a county or a municipality. So you wouldn't have just one specific office holder, you'd have one blanket.
Well, we actually do have a blanket bond too, Jim. There's a blanket bond over the other elected officials of $50,000. But the treasurer, according to the statute, has to have their own bond. So yeah, there is a complete conflict, and we're not the only county that this has happened to. So it needs to be not just resolved for us, but resolved for all of Indiana that run into this.
Yep.
And that's what I'm saying. It would be a statewide change. So when I talked to Brad King in the Secretary of State's office, he said this has been an issue for the last 3 or 4 years, it's been popping up, right? That he knows about it. And it's a direct conflict. So you can't have one without the other. So it just, the blanket, we just have to change where it says treasurer to incorporate it into a blanket for everyone. So that you don't have to go down this path, or anybody else in the state for that matter. Is basically just change that code out. So I think I can get it done this year, so nobody has to go down this path again.
Jim, while you're looking at that, you might, I'm not saying, I haven't thought this through enough to be sure that I'm right about this, but another thing I would think about, I thought it was peculiar in this statutory system that the commissioners are given the authority to review the bond form, which is kind of a ministerial duty. But what is strange about it is it says that this, and once again, you're going to want to look at that case, because actually the case is, interpreting somewhat contrary to the language of the statute. The idea that the bond has to be in place before the person takes office, but it doesn't say who's in charge of enforcing that rule, right? So I think it would be really that, while you look at it, maybe a mechanism that makes it clear whose responsibility it is to get the bond and what happens, and who decides, who does something about it if there's a problem, right? Because there's no clear authority to anybody. That's what we're facing here a little bit, if that makes sense.
No, exactly. And that's what Brad was telling me, the same thing, is saying that, well, State Board of Account kind of oversees that the bond is in place, but really nobody has jurisdiction, if you will, on who's going to police that, who has to enforce it, who has to oversee it. So you're absolutely right. That whole statute, and I'm not sure where it came from. I don't know if you know Brad King at all, but he gets really deep in the weeds, and all I wanted to have was about a 10-minute conversation on how do I fix this problem or put a pause on it so that we could figure out what we need to do. And he took me way down in the weeds and lost me. So I need to see it on paper rather than over my cell phone in the truck.
I think I have your email. I can send you a copy of the case. I mean,
That'd be great. Yeah.
I meant to put it in the record here anyway, so I'll send you the one when I send it to Rachel to put it into the record. I think it is really helpful because that, in fact, is, even though there's no citation to that case, I believe that's actually the law, just the way, Mr. Joyce thought on it. So you'll want to know that, because maybe partly what needs to happen is the law needs to be adjusted. The statute should be adjusted to actually match what the judicial interpretation is anyway.
Yeah, it's a good path to go down. So I think it's Wednesday I meet with State Board of Accounts and with Brad to see what we can figure out and where we can place it this year. So hopefully we get a resolution to it and everybody's happy. And I didn't even think about AIC, so I'll get with Botteroff and include them in that meeting also.
Thank you, Jim.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks, Jim.
Does anybody else have anything on this? I guess we can adjourn. Motion. Is there a second?
So moved. Yep.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thanks a lot. See you guys later.
Everybody have a good New Year's.
Bye.
Thank you, guys.